Hey Rum fans, welcome back. This is Wednesday the 13th of December. Let's get another one of these opened. If you're just joining me for the first time, this is Master of Malt. This is a building your own advent calendar. Master of Malt very kindly let me build my own calendar. I've completely forgotten why I put it in here because it was weeks and weeks and weeks ago. All I know is that there was a sort of 6 or 7 brandies and the rest was rum out of 24. We've been top loaded with by the 10th. We had 5 brandies and 5 rums, so I'm expecting a whole lot of rums. The rums, just a very quick recap, up until the start of this week, there weren't many of the rums that I thought, you know, all right, they're decent, but they're not great. But the last 2, I would generally buy a bottle. That was the Dictador 12-year-old on Monday, and the Ronza Kappa System Solera 23 yesterday. But the cognacs, phenomenal cognacs, but they've been expensive. Anyway, let's find the 13th. Where are we? 13 up here. Let's see what we've got in today. Right, horse, another dark one. Could be. I think I did put some white rums in here, but I don't know. Here we go. Oh, interesting shouts. This is going to be fun. There we go. The OVD Demerara. Now that I've pulled it out, I do remember adding this to the box, and there was a specific reason why I've added this to the box, because it's not necessarily a neat sipper, but this is for me, and I knew I was going to do this. This for me is going to be the comparison, because I've never had that OVD Demerara. As far as I'm concerned, I've never ever had it, but it's one of those that's always been in there. But I think is going to be a direct competition for me. For the Skipper. Now, I love the Skipper as a dark rum. It's a little bit sweeter than the Worthy 109, and for me, still not on the level of the Goldstone Dark. I flipping love the Goldstone Dark. You might be thinking I'm patriotic for British rums. I'm not. That is flipping banging. That is absolutely first-class rum. But the Worthy 109 would be my go-to general pick. But as I say, this is definitely got a place and definitely does add sweeter, darker, richer, robust notes. The big thing with these, so Jamaican, British, these are Guyanan. This is from DDL, Demerara Distillers Limited, same people as El Dorado. So I'm naturally expecting this to be slightly dosed as well. This is obviously slightly dosed. I'm not saying massively dosed and massive amounts of sugar, but this for me is going to be very, very interesting. And I might actually get a tin of Coke out for this one as well, just to kind of do the comparison. So, before we go any further, let's do the prices of this. $23.95, the OVD in the UK. That translates to $30.5 US, 28 euros, 45.5 Australian dollars, and then 41 Canadian dollars. And I've just literally pulled it up on the Master of Malt website, just so I've got a rough idea in my head. The OVD is £1, where are we? £1.25 cheaper than the Skipper, so nearly pushing up to $2, not quite, $1.80 cheaper the OVD is compared to the Skipper. Now the whole reason for the Coke is because if I'm going to have a rum and Coke, I do prefer darker rums in that. Darker rums for me, all about Mai Tais, all about hurricanes. I love those things. Ginger beer, dark and stormies. It generically is my simple mixing rum, like Coke, ginger beer, that sort of stuff. So for me, they do play a big role when I have mixed drinks. So let's get this. The OVD, it should be a 40%er as well. OVD in there, nice and dark. It's Demerara's, so it's bottled. As far as I'm aware, to call it Demerara, it's got to be bottled in Guyana. And that, even though I think OVD is actually a Scottish brand, so I don't know how that's the rights and wrongs with that. But let's have a little smell. I'll be brutally honest, there's not too much coming off on the aroma for this for me. I would, if I smelt it, I would possibly go dark rum, possibly. So that's, for me, it has got that sort of charred barrel note to it, but nothing like the Worthy, nothing like Goldstone Dark, nothing like that. So a touch of oakiness to it, a touch of char. I don't know. I don't think there's anything else coming off that. I've just poured myself a little bit of the Skipper, and it's a similar thing. I do get more of a roasted note off this, more of a sort of a charred note. not too much. For me, these do come alive because they are essentially young rums. They're not, they're not long aged. People naturally assume dark rums have been aged a lot longer, and it's very rarely the case. What generically happens, if they are like the Worthy 109, for instance, is they are aged in heavily charred barrels. So toasted, roasted, burnt to inside the barrels, heavily roasted. But that might only take like a few months or so to get that flavour imparted. John, for instance, a Goldstone rum, to take this in a different direction, actually uses barrels that have been chipped up, and he calls it rapid infusing. And I think it's 21 days, but 4 different types of oak chips that have gone in there. And that gets a bit undosed. There's no flavourings, no colours, so you can sort of see it on there if I hold it up. That is just pure colour from 21 days aging in with oak chips, like different barrels, 4 different types of wood that have gone into that. But you get that. So they inherently don't have too many notes going into them. I can't pick too much of a difference. Let's have a little taste. Let's have the OVD. Let's see what it tastes like. Not going to lie, I quite like that. If it has been dosed, it is minuscule amounts. I would say there's a lot more dark wooden chard that I like compared to Myers, compared to, what's the other one? Goslings. I get a sort of a subtle nod to coffee richness coming through there. And what's the word? Not burnt. I wouldn't go burnt toffee. I would go like a caramelization that's gone a little bit further than what you would normally caramelize stuff. There's almost, if that makes sense. It's got quite a long, healthy finish on it. It's these type of rums that I do really enjoy. I can quite happily sip these neat. I really can. And it's this weird thing you've got to get through your head. It's not, when I talk about I don't like long range, but it's, the heavy chard doesn't impart loads and loads and loads of wet, soggy barrelness to it. It just imparts that sort of charred note, if you like. And that's the difference for me. This hasn't had loads of time to mature in barrels. It's still a fresh, young rum. I kind of like that. Now, this is interesting. The Skipper, undeniably sweeter. Undeniably sweeter. Wow. It gives me, that's interesting. Do you know what? Don't get me wrong, I like the Skipper. I really do. I've found myself recently, last 4-5 months or so, going more and more towards the Worthy 109 before the Goldstone came on the scene. I found myself going more for those because they are drier and these are sweet, and this does affect the balance of cocktails, like Mai Tais a little bit more. Do you know what? It's a very different rum. It's a very, very different rum to the Worthy 109. You don't have that Jamaican oomph coming through that like you've got in the Worthy 109. But you know what? For a dark rum, for your Cokes, for your ginger beers, that ain't half. That should be giving Goslings and Myers a massive run for its money, especially here in the UK. The Skipper has just finished to like a burnt treacle. It's just now, this whole burnt treacle vibe has just come over the back of my throat. Interesting. So you know me, I love my science experiments when it comes to booze. So the jigger's out. These have been, evenly matched. So same amount of Skipper, same amount of the OVD gone in there, same amount of Coke gone into both of them. This is generally a tough call. Now, very different rums, very different finishes. I would, this is a tough one. I'm potentially pulled more towards the Skipper for a rum and Coke. And that for me is going to be very, very similar to ginger beer, depending on what ginger beer you're using. I think, there's 2 things here. I think the OVD is too similar in dryness, too similar in charredness to the Worthy 109. What that lacks compared to the Worthy 109 is that sort of Jamaican funk, a little bit of banana, a little bit of esteriness. That's a delicious rum and coke. But I think the slight sweetness of the Skipper, for me personally, makes that a better mixing rum, simplicity for mixing. Now, I'm going to caveat that because having known what the Goldstone's like, having known what the Worthy 109 is like, there's a kind of caveat here. I think that OVD is going to be better in Mai Tais, better in hurricanes, better in those sort of cocktails. But if you've got a standard mixer where there's no sugar syrups or nothing else at play, it's just rum. If you like your dark rum and cokes, your dark rum and ginger beers, I think because that's slightly sweeter, not massively, but just slightly, I think that nudges it purely for the bog standard mixer. That's a tough one. This is real, not geek level, but this is real sort of cocktail unnecessarily kind of thing. You know, a lot of people would just go, oh yeah, I'll just get that and that. But for me, doing all these cocktail experiments, being a bartender for, you know, the best part of 30 years now, I can tell what they're going to bring to cocktails, and it's going to be a very different thing. It's not an either or, it's a different cocktail, the OVD versus the Skipper. So for me, now that I've got the Worthy 109, now that I've got the Goldstone, I actually wouldn't have the OVD because for me, it's too similar in charredness. This brings me something different, a little bit of sweetness, marginal sweetness, not massively sweet, but marginal sweetness to what they do. So for me, I would still have the Skipper over the OVD.